Me too.
And before we talk about, of course, I love the movie, and Travis did as well. I want to talk about the political implications of it
Sure.
with the whole. I think it was called the.
The Sokovia Accords?
Correct.
Yeah.
About the control aspect, was that when you guys, along with your writers, when you guys are working on this, was that literally just taken straight out the comic, or was there some larger implication, societal implication?
Well, it's both.
It's different than the book, yeah.
It's a little different than the book. Obviously, calling it the Sokovia Accords, we're tying it to what happened in Ultron. Mm-hmm. We're saying that, that there's been consequence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, we didn't do a direct adaptation of Civil War because it's not applicable. We're not using the same characters, the same stories.
Way different.
Yeah. Totally different. So we're doing the concept of Civil War for the Marvel Cinematic Universe characters. With working with a character like Captain America, anytime you say that name anywhere outside the United States, it has political implications, and without question, to people in the U.S., it has political implications. So we feel it's incumbent upon us to address the political aspect of the character. What does it mean? What is his identity? What does it mean to be Captain America? Can he understand what it is anymore? Does he understand what his boundaries are? Does he represent his country? Does he represent himself? When things go gray like they do in Winter Soldier, who is he accountable to? Is it only himself? And that's what he's dealing with in this movie. He learned from the events of Winter Soldier that power structures can't be trusted. So for us, we're expanding on this concept that we're playing with in Winter Soldier with regulation. And it is another way to question individual freedom versus security. Should superpowers be regulated? That's the core concept of the film. So it certainly has a very political connotation.
You have in our minds, it's like we're dealing with superheroes who as it's sort of articulated in the film by Secretary Ross, they go where they want to go, they do what they want to do. They may have the best intentions, but there's still a price to be paid for using power in that way. There's a pushback against using power in that way. And I think that we, as a superpower, the United States, also is in a situation where they feel the pushback against using power in that way. And it's created it creates a lot of anxiety on all of our parts. Our society is in a big state of tension over those kind of issues.
I'm curious. Winter Soldier, it explored, national security. This one was about accountability. If there were going to be another Captain America movie, which who knows if there will be, what aspect would you like to see explored in that?
We tried to take him on a journey through all three movies. We looked at Joe's film, and Joe he's painted as a patriot in that movie, and he's in a very black and white conflict. So it's very easy for him to understand what his identity is in that film. Winter Soldier was, in a way, modernizing and deconstructing the character. It was putting him in a position where he had to go against the power structure. It was a corrupt power structure. There were villains behind it.
But he had to question the chain of authority.
But he had a question.
His first exposure to modern government is a corrupt one, which has to be influencing them.
Exactly. And so where we were trying to take him in Civil War, which is why we tried to make the movie emotional and give it real emotional motivation and a family tearing apart. We wanted to turn him into, we thought it'd be interesting if we could take him on a journey from patriot to insurgent. So that by the end of the third film, he was a full-blown insurgent. He's not, he was given the title of Captain America in the first movie, and by the end of the last film, he has to reject it and
drop the shield.
So for us, where we would go next, I think would be exploring the character as an insurgent, as someone who no longer has a country that he represents.
Well, who is Cap without the shield?
Right. And
who's
Steve Rogers?
Who's Steve Rogers? Yeah.
Right.
Who's Steve Rogers?
You guys have, in my mind, a grasp of this character in a way that I think is so strong and so real of what you bring to this character in a way that I don't think I see in a lot of the other standalone films that are being done by Marvel. What would you guys attribute that kind of inner knowledge or that feeling that you guys just kind of bring to it that makes that character so relatable to so many different people?
Well, one thing you got to admire, I think that we've always admired in Captain America is and this is a tricky part of his character, but he has a very, very strong moral compass, right? Now that can also make the character a little distasteful sometimes too, because if he becomes too simplistic.
Boy Scout.
Yeah, exactly. He goes Boy Scout, and that's something that always bothered us about the character. But one thing that's fun about having a strong moral compass is if you put that compass or that character in very, very complicated situations where it becomes very difficult to figure out what the right thing is.
What the right direction
You
is.
know, that's a good, exciting combination. I think that's what we respond to, because I think, look, at the end of the day, many people probably feel this way. You're sort of really grounded in what your beliefs are, what your ethics are, what your values are, what your morals are. You can be very well grounded in whatever those ideas are, but then the trick is like figuring out how to move through life with those in the right way, you know? So I think that's where we connect with this character, where everybody can connect with him, with this idea of like knowing who you are, knowing what you want, knowing what you believe, but finding yourself in situations where it becomes very hard to do or be that, you know?
And I grew up collecting comics, so I formulated my opinion of these characters when I was between the ages of 10 and 18. Very impressionable, emotional times. I wrote strong appreciation of the archetype behind the characters. He wasn't one of my favorite characters growing up. I liked him, but I had an issue with him as a Boy Scout. I found him a little bland for me. I used to imagine Steve McQueen in my head playing Captain America because it would give him more bite for me. So when Marvel approached us, we had the opportunity to work on Captain America. It was the first thing that I thought of, was if I had the opportunity to ever work with that character, I would want to add an element of edge and complexity to him, so that he became more interesting to the kid who read comics 30 years ago.
You know, when we first talked to you guys a few years ago from Winter Soldier, you were just getting your feet wet in the Marvel Universe, you know, and now, a few years later, you guys have this incredible responsibility with this movie. It's not just a Captain America movie, it's a Marvel Universe movie, it's everybody. You're introducing Black Panther, Spider-Man, that's a huge responsibility to get all that stuff right. How are you guys feeling about that whole thing now, looking back from where you started to where things are now?
I mean, like Joe mentioned, we've been lifelong fans, so on that level, it's like, it's extremely, it's hard, we have to pinch ourselves, But look, from the very first Iron Man movie, we fell in love with what Marvel was doing. So to be able to, we've been fans of the MCU, so to be able to sort of get into the MCU with Winter Soldier and then start to expand into it more and more with Civil War, and then be able to be the guys who are going to deliver Avengers Infinity War, which is intended to be the movies that are the culmination of the entire run. I mean, it's been incredible for us. I mean, we love the storytelling, we love the mythology, and we love the strong sense of character that all these people have. So, storytellers, it's a gift to be able to play, to be able to use these people, construct them for narratives. Yeah.
Now I thought that when we talked to you guys for Winter Soldier, I thought Winter Soldier to me was a huge step from the first Avenger. And as much as I love that movie, I think this movie is, as Travis said, is just even another huge step for you guys. I equated the screenplay to this as I was watching it with all of the different layers. It almost reminded me of what Christopher Nolan did with The Dark Knight, and how the story just kept building and building and building. When you guys initially got a hold of the screenplay, how excited were you to not only kind of culminate this journey that Captain America is on, but also, as Travis just said, to introduce many of these new characters that people haven't seen on screen?
Well, that was incredibly exciting. We have an amazing relationship with Marcus and McFeely, who are the writers on both Winter Soldier and Civil War. Civil War was conceived by the four of us in a room, and the producer Nate Marvel, who works. Nate Moore, who works at Marvel, who's an incredible producer, very, very intelligent, thoughtful. We refer to him as the third Russo brother. So the five of us sit in a room, and we broke story on this for months, and it was really something we were able to build from the ground up. There was no idea for a third Captain America film. It was really just the five of us sitting in a room saying, what's next with this character? Where do we want to go next with the character? So we were able to layer and build the script based on our own taste, which includes, being pop culture junkies, which includes being comic book fans, which includes, growing up on foreign film, which includes, an appreciation for, layered storytelling. So we just kept working and working and working the script. And we wanted to bring in some of the newer characters because as we were working the script, we felt like it was getting binary. We had two opposing factions, which seemed like it had a predictable result to it. And we couldn't fill the second act of the movie with really what essentially ends up being the third act of the movie. We had to zig and zag a little bit. So we brought in Black Panther as a free radical because we wanted a character who had a really strong motivation that had nothing to do with the Accords. It was a personal motivation, so he could alter events as need be. Spider-Man and Ant-Man came in because we knew that the tone was getting very consistent and dour. And one of the cool things about working in the Marvel Universe is that you have all of these distinct franchises that are operating, that are pulled into a unified narrative. I think this movie's gotten to take advantage of that more than any other film, where we're able to take the tone of Ant-Man and bring it to, 25 minutes of Civil War. And that creates variance for the audience and hopefully a more, and hopefully enhances their, enjoyment of the film, because they're not getting one consistent tone throughout. So, for us, there was a real specific, targeted approach to the storytelling and a real specific, targeted approach to why we brought in the other characters.
As we move on to the next couple movies, we get a little bit of a break. We got Doctor Strange and then some other stuff before we get to Infinity War or whatever they're going to be titled. I don't know what you guys are going to call those.
Still figuring it out.
Still figuring it out. What are the implications that are going to be left over from this movie that will have impact on those movies, or will there still be ramifications from this movie on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The most important thing is, look, we really, the end of this movie we thought was the perfect ending. I mean, we wanted to tell the story. Over the course of several movies now, we've seen the Avengers form a bit of a surrogate family with one another, right? And this movie was very much about us. Well, what happens when the family fight comes and the family falls apart? So at the end of the film, the family has fallen apart. So now as we move into Infinity War, where the MCU is going to face the greatest threat that it's ever had, the greatest threat to the universe that's ever existed in the form of Thanos, it's like we have a family that's divided and broken up. So for us, the questions going forward is can those relationships repair themselves? If they can, how will they do that? And will they ever be the same? Will they ever be as strong as they once were? So that's very much the beginning, how we're moving the MCU into Infinity War from the end of this
The
movie.
Civil War will continue in Infinity War. There's a lot of wars going on.
Apparently.
We got to wrap this up, which I'm hating because I love talking to you guys.
I'm talking to you guys, yes.
We don't want to stop.
But thank you, guys, for your time. Your movie is.
Thank you
It's
so
a
much.
great
Thank you.
film.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
It's amazing.
I
We
appreciate
got
it.
time for one real quick.
Yeah.
I know, I heard that. Iron Man was very much the centerpiece of these first couple phases. Is there one character that you would say is going to emerge in phase 3 that could sort of take that centerpiece mantle?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think moving forward, yes, certainly the Marvel Universe has to be cyclical, right? Because we can't keep watching the same characters, right?
Well, there's so many great characters now too, right?
And I think that there has to be storytelling just to keep it diverse has to keep evolving. I think one character who's very interesting and who's very powerful, who's being introduced later this year, Strange, is a really fascinating character because he introduces a whole nother side of the Marvel Universe. The Strange universe is very different than anything that we've seen up to this point, and he's a very powerful character. So I feel like he has real potential moving forward in the next few phases to become a real marquee character.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you,
Let's get
man.
out of here before